Okay, so we are now live on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. This is episode 8 of Keep Rochdale Affordable podcast. If you haven't seen this podcast before, it's a podcast built by Rochdale residents, i.e., me and my wife, Adena Ferretti. I'm John Ferretti. And we're Rochdale Village residents that started the podcast to try to provide a platform for our residents to talk about the crisis that we're facing. We're currently facing 57% proposed increases over the next 2 years by New York State DHCR, the Department of Housing and Community Renewal. And there are many proposals, and they're all bad. They're all unaffordable. And so we started to organize with this podcast and in other efforts to try to put pressure on public officials and to try to lobby for a real future for our community to make it truly affordable. So if you're unfamiliar, every podcast starts with Adena laying out, what she thinks about recent developments in Rochdale. What that does is it allows me to share out the live stream feed to various social media platforms to build the widest audience so that as many people as possible can participate. As you can see on the scroll on the bottom of the screen, it says if you would like to call in and speak to us live, please text me at 917-678-0557 and tell us what building you live in, and we'll try our best to take as many calls as time allows from Rochdale Village residents or from other people in New York City who are facing an affordability crisis similar to ours, who want to be in community with us. So, Adena, the platform is yours. Here's the mic. So, Adena can tell us what's been on her mind recently. And as you know, there's been a lot going on. So there's a lot to update, but Adena will start us off with a little bit of an update. Go ahead, Adena.
Okay, thank you, John. Thank you for this moment. Okay, so guys, this is episode 8 of Keeping Rochdale Affordable podcast. And today we're gonna be talking about the trip that residents and board members had that went to Albany. We're gonna talk about residents and how their feedbacks on this. We're also going to be touching on the mayor debate that happened this week. I'm not sure how
It
many
was not a
people.
marital debate. Let me just make that clear. It was a New York
The
City
mayor,
mayoral debate. Our
the
marital
mayor
debates are not
debate,
a subject for the podcast. Okay?
debate that happened this week. Also, we're going to be touching on the Rochdale Bulletin that came out to all the residents.
Sorry. Go
We'll also be talking about the Rochdale Bulletin that came out this week. Next on the agenda, we're going to be talking about the ongoing efforts that we have, and that is putting pressure on the elective officers to help us to keep Rochdale affordable, knowing that us, the residents, will not be able to manage this increase 57% all by ourselves. We would need the state help to basically help us either by very low interest rates or by grants or just wipe it away, period. But we need help from the state that is going to help us. So we are out there campaigning to put pressure on the state and public official, especially Kathy Hochul, to basically help us because we are in dire need of help right now, and the people at Rochdale cannot afford to do it by themselves. They need a giant footprint to come in here and step on this and help. Okay, so we have another partner cat podcast that I talk about, and that's my thoughts. That's only my thoughts. Okay, because John talks a lot, right? So, so
Right
we
under the
have
bus I went. Just she
right
backed up
on
the
the
bus. We're right under the bus.
Yeah, I smacked you right under the bus. So these
Yeah.
are my thoughts. I watched the mayor debate this week, and what was surprising to me was that when they ask about affordability, especially housing affordability, Michael Blake was the only candidate that made a suggestion about Rochdale. Nobody else said anything about Rochdale when it came to affordability, and I thought that that was one of the biggest things. That was our time to basically would have shined and to put us on the map. But he was the only one that mentioned specifically Rochdale Village. No other candidates have mentioned Rochdale Village. And remember that John and I, we have went out several times, and each and every one of those people that was on stage, well, not no, not. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna back up. Most of them, we basically went to whenever they had like a public airing, we would
Yeah.
go out and we would meet them. So we met Michael, we met
Adrian Adams, we
Adrian
met
Adams, all of them. We
Jeremy
were
Lenny, but
always out there meeting them. So it was very shocking that they know about it. I'm not sure why they didn't put us on the map. Most disappointing, not surprising, but most disappointing is that Adrian Adams didn't mention Rochdale because that is our city councilor leader. And every time we would go out and we would say, "This is happening at Rochdale, can you please help us?" to anybody, they would point the finger back and says, "Do you know Adrian Adams?" They will always say that. So I'm not sure why she did not. Maybe she forgot. We're all human. And people do forget or people do make mistakes. But what a big mistake that would have been for her not to put us on the map and say, it's just like having a kid and your kid need a kidney. And you didn't say, help me, my kid need a kidney. You know what I'm saying? She went out there and she didn't even mention Rochdale. And that was very disappointing to me that she didn't put us on the map and put us on the news out there coming out of her mouth. That was anyone that was disappointed, raise your hands. Okay, me. All right. Okay. I'll put in the comments, say me. All right. So
yeah,
that was that. We do that on TikTok a lot. The next thing was there was a news article or a television
it was a TV interview
it was
on
a TV
CBS
interview
2 News.
on CBS News that interviewed both the board members and the residents. The board members, they talked about the increase, they talked about the trouble that we're having, and they also had where they interviewed the residents. And one of the residents came up, and I was like, "Oh my God, that's my neighbor." It was so good to see my neighbor on TV. And she was talking about, I see her because when I'm walking my puppy, I always see her. And she was basically saying that, look, this rent increase is coming up. And, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm a little bit anxious because, what are the ways that's gonna, what can I do to make this affordable for me and for me to pay my rent? And she was saying, "You know what, I'm gonna have to cut back on eating." And I'm wondering, when she said that, I was like, wow, I wonder how much people are echoing that same thought. How much people have that mirror to say, "Oh my God, I look in the mirror and I have to cut back on eating." Like, that's the basic human thing to survive, is to eat. And to
Mhm.
think that you have to cut back on eating just to be able to have a roof over your head. And I think that that was so, it was kind of a shocking, or it was kind of like, you make your heart beat a little bit more to know that someone in our community has to cut back on food and is going to go hungry. Bringing it up to Rochdale Village did a food pantry this weekend. I wasn't able to be there because we had other engagement, but at the end of the day, they had a food pantry and people came out and, got the food that they need. That means that, Rochdale City need that maybe people do need food. So that's why they have this food pantry. It goes down the line to also say that there was another person, I think in the big mall, and he was giving out food. And I think he's trying to run for city councilor. Right, John?
Yeah, his name is Japneet Singh. He's running
Yeah.
for the New York City Council seat here in
Yeah,
our
so
district,
yeah,
58.
so therefore, yeah, so he was out there and he was giving out food, and then they called the cops on him. And I'm wondering, why would you call the cops on him? That would lead to so many things. First of all, there are people that probably do need the food. Second of all, they would probably say that he's an immigrant and, he could go to jail and, his family could suffer. And then what about his kids? And it goes down. And then, he's trying to run and trying to make a difference in our community. And then the cops the cops were called on him, So
Yeah,
it would just like a domino effect that would, be bad for him. So those are my thoughts.
it's
John is so
all,
eager to talk.
it's also more than that. It's more than just that they didn't have any concern for him. They didn't have any concern for the people who may have needed that food. You know, I know that certain people have a response when somebody who they feel is outside their community talks about food insecurity or people, being economically pressed and not getting enough food. And I know people can respond a certain type of way or feel a certain type of way about that because he comes from outside the community. But the fact that you're having a food pantry and that you have food pantry on a regular basis here, and there are so many programs for seniors and for others on fixed income related to food, we know that this is an issue. And for somebody to call the cops, you're opening up a Pandora's box or a can of worms that you don't know how it's going to turn out. You don't know who the cop that goes there is going to, what their attitudes are going to be. Mm-hmm. And we've had police officers collaborating with ICE. We've had, pitched battles in New York.
What's happening in California?
Yeah, in Los Angeles and New York and other places, and I think Minneapolis, there are pitched battles between protesters and police related to Trump's increased attack on legal immigrants. Let's get that straight. These are legal immigrants they are attacking. Many of them have applied for citizenship or they are permanent residents, and they are literally attacking people who have a legal right to be here. So in that environment, why would you call the cops on him? Why was it that serious for you to call the cops on him? And we're not idiots. I mean, I know that a lot of the people who run for office here and the management company and other people constantly assume that we don't know what's going on. We know about the political relationship between Adrienne Adams and her chosen candidate, her chief of staff, Ty Hankerson. We know they have a long-standing relationship, and we know that that's their preferred candidate. And nobody has any problem with you having a political a preferred candidate in terms of an election. It's perfectly natural that anybody would have an opinion about who they think should lead us. It's a whole nother thing to use the resources of Rochdale, which they have repeatedly, by calling the security officers, the Rochdale security officers, to harass Mr. Singh when he's trying to reach out to residents here. And their argument is, well, he doesn't live here. Well, that's irrelevant. Neither does Ty Hankerson. Neither does anybody else running in this race. They're none of them are residents.
Well, also, John, don't forget they wanted to, when we were trying to do the signatures, the security was also bothering people about that, and they had to say, I think they spoke to the board, and the board had to speak to the security to tell them, look, to leave us alone because we're trying to get signature. Yeah. But so many people come to my door with knocking and carrying on about, vote for this person or vote for that person, or they're in the mall and I don't see anyone really bothering them. So
they actually have been bothered. They have been harassed repeatedly by security officers here. And what they're doing is interfering in the democratic process, and they're not allowed to do that. That's what they're doing, is they're interfering in an election, and they're taking your rights away from you for you to decide. It's the residents' decision who they vote for. If you want to vote for Ty Hankerson, great, go do that. God bless. Go do what you want to do and amplify your voice. But you only get one vote. You don't get the right to silence other people's voices. You don't get the right to use our resources, the resources that fund the Department of Security, to go and interfere with a candidate's ability to campaign in the assembly, in the city council district that he's running a race in. You can't do that. And you can't target him for one type of treatment while other candidates are given a platform on Real Deal Rochdale on a loop with videos about them giving out food. It's not okay. It's not right. It makes us look ridiculous. It makes us look corrupt. And it's bad for our community. And to be honest, look, I didn't want to make any statements about this race. I'm not endorsing Mr. Singh. I'm not endorsing any candidate, neither is Adena, because it has been a very divisive subject of discussion within our community. And a lot of people have strong feelings about it. And they're right to be able to have those feelings. And we unfortunately, it got very heated and very divisive. And
but I think also,
some
people was some of the residents were in the Real Rochdale talking about what happened.
There's been numerous posts. Yeah, there's been numerous posts.
So that's why we brought it up today.
Yeah, one by Tabitha, who is one of the people who actually was organizing the petition campaign. She was actually devoted a tremendous amount of her time and energy to get the petition signatures that were handed over to the elected officials recently. Like, she's not somebody who wasn't active. She's somebody who's very active. And she said she felt some type of way about the fact that her post, just letting people know about this event, was taken down in Real Deal Rochdale by one of the moderators. And the moderators, a lot of them are people on the board of directors. And that is not their role they should be playing. They should not be suppressing residents' right to know about events going on in their community. If you don't want to participate, don't participate. But don't engage in suppressing our members' voice, our residents' voices. That's the whole point of Real Deal Rochdale. And she felt, and so that's why she reposted. And other people posted video of the police officers harassing Mr. Singh. Now, I don't want to make this whole podcast episode about this city council race, but it's a symptom of a wider problem that we have here, where, you know, the people who are elected to lead us play in our faces and engage in, you know, all sorts of deals behind our backs to support certain candidates. And it's like I said, it's fine if you vote for them. It's fine if you tell other people to vote for them, but you cannot suppress the rights of freedom of speech and a right to participate in an election for any candidate running in that election. And to do that makes us look ridiculous, and it also has liabilities. If Mr. Singh, you know, so chooses, he could file legal charges against Rochdale for interfering in the election. And we, the residents, would be liable for that. Who's going to pay those fines? Is it going to be the board of directors or whoever decided these decisions, whoever oversees the security officers?
No, I think it's the same people. I think it's the same people that's going to be paying the carrying charges.
Exactly. And we can't afford that. And you, as an elected officer, or whoever's making these phone calls, whoever in the Department of Security is deciding to go and harass this man, whoever's making that decision is risking our future economic stability, risking our future affordability. And this is when we're trying to dig ourselves out of a crisis that we didn't create. And that's not the action of somebody who's fit to lead us. I'm sorry. So I just want to start talking about some of the things that we wanted to talk about here. Sorry, let me just.
You want to talk about the Albany trip?
What's that? Yeah, we're going to talk.
We have the trip to Albany, and we have the mayoral debate, and we have the Rochdale Board.
Yeah. All right. So Sean Chandler, who runs the Real Deal Rochdale group, just messaged me, said that it was removed after the event. And that's very nice, Sean. It's very nice that her flyer was removed after the event, but the video of Ty Hankerson runs on a loop over and over and over again. So tell me again about how, get my facts straight, buddy. If you treat one candidate a certain way and then you engage in suppressing the message of another candidate, that's not free and fair elections. It's not okay. It's not right. And I don't know if it was you that made that decision, but whoever made that decision had no right to do that. In any case, let's move on. We wanted to talk about the Albany trip. Okay, so coming out of the Albany trip, we had a conversation with some of the board of directors. So in any case, the context of that was that going into the trip, we were supposed to get, if it's a united front, we need to be on the same accord, on the same page when we're talking about what demands we're raising. And we want to amplify the voices of our residents, obviously, because it's them that are experiencing the crisis that we're facing. And the point of the trip was for legislators, public officials to meet directly with our residents. And they did that to a limited degree with a number of elected officials they were able to meet with. That's why I went. That's why I devoted an entire day to go and travel. That's why these residents, over 100 of them, I hear, went up on a bus trip to Albany to advocate for themselves, to advocate for their own community, to have their voices heard. And to whatever extent that was successful, that was a great step forward, and that's why we participated. However, there were criticisms by residents, and residents, just like I say that somebody who's on the board of directors who wants to tell us their opinion should have the full free reign to tell us their opinions anytime they want. But our community's voices and our residents' voices need to be heard as well. And that was the point of the trip. Otherwise, you don't mobilize 100 people to go up to Albany and travel 6 hours to be up there. My group that I went up with spoke to exactly one elected official, James Sanders. James Sanders Jr. is our state senator. And I appreciate the amount of time that James Sanders Jr. spent with us. Whatever differences we may have or strategies we may have about the way forward, he was open to listen to the residents and did so for a long period of time. And I welcome his openness to do that. He also led a press conference with the residents, which I live streamed. Again, this is not about me. It's not about any one individual. It's not about Adena. It's about allowing residents to be present, even if they couldn't make the trip, and allow them to comment and allow them to see what happened. And that was important. And I was the only one to do that. I mean, other people did short live streams, but nobody covered it like I did. And that's important so that residents can see what the responses were. And what the debate was between myself and other residents with the board of directors was that we needed a plan going up there ahead of time to know what we agreed upon, what the agreed demands are. And in a united front, we may have different perspectives. We may not agree on everything, but we should be able to come up with a list of demands that concretely address the crisis that we face. Not just the insurance charges, not just the price we pay for supplies and materials, but every issue that we're facing. And there was no discussion or debate with residents ahead of time before we went up there. Instead, our residents were handed talking points written by, I assume, some members of the board of directors. And those talking points, it's fine if that's their position, but that should be the starting point for the discussion, not the end point. And we should have been prepared, knowing who we were meeting with, which elected officials we were meeting with, and what we hope to achieve in the course of that struggle and in the course of that united front. And residents criticized the board members for not doing that and for not preparing ahead of time to make sure that had the best likelihood of happening. Instead, what they did was they met, the members of the board of directors met privately with the governor's staff. Now, the governor's staff were the single most powerful people that we were meeting with that day. Yet the 100+ residents who took a 6-hour ride to Albany were not included in that discussion. And I keeping it 100 with you and keeping it 100 with the board, I don't agree with that. I think that was a missed opportunity. I think it undermined the very purpose of the trip, which was to force elected officials to be in a room with our residents and hear their stories and hear what they are facing. Because if we're going to change their mind, we have to make an effective argument about why they need to change their mind and why they need to do for us and why they need to live up to their promises that go on for decades, back to 1963, of affordability for this community. So we had a disagreement over that. Now, we can have disagreements, and they don't have to be disagreeable. They don't have to conclude with threats. They don't have to conclude with character assassination. But those who were upset about receiving criticism from the residents, not just myself, but many others, got very upset about it and decided to threaten to expose me, threaten to find out when I came here, how I came to live at Rochdale. Now, I don't know how anybody could take it other than a threat to attempt to silence me, a threat to attempt to bring up allegations against residents. Now, why would you, as somebody who's elected to represent residents, do that? I can't imagine what must be in your mind that you think it's good representation to threaten and bully your own residents into silence, or to, potentially slander your fellow residents. I don't understand why you would do that. And It's the only reason why I bring it up is because it's a big betrayal of the oath of office that each of them have taken. And not only did this one board member do this, Kamal Salim, but Gene Hall, the president of the board of directors, liked his post, threatening me and threatening to expose me, and that's not okay.
But I don't understand why they keep calling you an agent, or
Yeah. Well,
what
they
basically what you're getting out of this. I don't understand what is it that you're getting out of this. And you're not it's just like you have a HIPAA law and you have medical
right
records. You have
side.
medical records. It's not okay for you to go. You may not like the person, but it's not okay for you to go and open someone's medical records and be like, oh yeah, this person have cancer, this person have HIV, this person have this, and tell it to the community. How did you get those records? So what is it that you would say? Do you go in everybody's records that you don't like? How are you gonna go? You're gonna go to Rochdale and you're gonna go into the management office and says, let me see this person records and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Yeah, but you're not allowed to do certain things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I basically was very upset about the person saying, well, they're going to go into John's record and find out how he came to live here. Why would you do that? Like, if he was black, would you do that? Like, would you say that? Would you call him an agent? Like, I don't understand. Like, why are you doing this? If a person was okay, if you're a black person, someone is saying something bad to you, you'll be like all up in your feelings. So it's because he's white, why you're saying that he's an agent, and you're saying that how he come to live in the community. It's a community. It's for everyone. Every human being that their heart beats is for their community. The Jewish people used to live here years ago. Do they come to you and said, how did you come to live here? No, everybody's living here, right? So it's the same thing. Why would you do that?
Yeah. I mean, just so people know what the post was, the reason why I responded. The post was of the video from CBS News that that Adena was talking about earlier. So she says 22%, however, required us. Oh, I'm sorry. Uh, she said for Miriam, who's lived at Rochdale for 35 years, she's preparing for the hike in ways she never imagined. My salary has been adjusted because I'm a senior. She said I'm not eating as much. I called not buying. It's called not buying additional clothes. It's called sacrificing one's life to have a roof over your head. So Mariel Santos put up this post and said this is not something you expect to see on your Facebook page while others are pointing fingers and saying that Rochdale management comply with payments of their bills and using the cost of living as a reason for this hike. Shaking my head, they keep playing chess. So in any case, Kamal Salim said, what is there to say? It's been said this is our reality. We need the state to be an ally in this and not an adversary. I'm going to share my screen so people can see this. Hold on a second. Where is it? Okay. No, that's not it. Hold on. Let me stop sharing it. Okay.
I don't see that.
Yeah, I'm going to hold on a second. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties always raise their head here. All right, let's try this. I believe this is it. Oh, no, that's not it. Sorry, I'm going to stop the share. Stop the share. I'm just trying to put it up because it's a long conversation and I want people to be able to see what's going on. Is that it? No. All right. So much for getting this up. But in any case, I'll read from it. So, you know, he says, what is there to say? It's been said, this is our reality. We need the state to be an ally, not an adversary. The public needs to not know all of the gory details. Need not know all the gory details. That's for the shareholders and those in government who are looking to help now. The segment did a great job highlighting the impact of this unreasonable demand. What else are you all looking for? So then I responded saying, Kamal Salim, what is there to say? Let's start out with this. Our residents should have never been put through this level of anxiety and sacrifice. And maybe the board of directors should have taken the lead in making damn sure that these were never the choices our residents were left to make. Our board of directors should have focused on fighting back and demanding respect for our community instead of voting for and portraying a 22.3% increase in 2025 and another 4.5% in 2026 as the only solution to our financial crisis. They should have been demanding that the voices and lived experiences of Rochdale Village's residents be heard directly by Governor Kathy Hochul, Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie, and Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart Cousins. And how about demanding that they come to Rochdale Village to see this crisis firsthand and meet with our residents? Why are residents being told that the, quote, politicians are scared of the residents, when in truth, as confirmed by Gene Hall's own public comments, several board members had already decided that residents that traveled over 6+ hours to Albany to advocate for our community wouldn't be allowed to meet with the governor's staff directly. Long before the board's majority vote on January 27, 2025, we should have been demanding New York State be an ally in this and not an adversary. Long before that vote, board members should have been engaging media, raising public awareness, exposing the unfairness of placing this financial burden on residents to clean up mismanagement and poor decisions that we had no role in making. But we saw none of that from any of you. Instead, we were told it was impossible for us to get funding from the state. So in any case, this is what I responded to him, saying, so what is there left to say? We expect you to show leadership that meets the scale of the crisis we face. We expect you to advocate for the real needs of our community and not concede to New York State turning its back on us. So in any case, this was where this all came from. That post is so outrageous to Kamal Salim and to Gene Hall that Gene Hall goes about paragraph after paragraph talking about the concerned cooperators, which she knows that the people who posted the post, the people who commented on the post, and myself have absolutely no connection to at all and don't support. But she goes on lecturing us about the battles that she's fought and the role played by the concerned cooperators. So then, Kamal Salim responds, and his response is that I blatantly falsify board members' statements to whip up concerned shareholders into a frenzy, that it's deceitful work of a cancerous agent. Ms. Hall said none of the nonsense you stated above. So he says that your comments are bordering on libel. I'm not sure what your motives are, when you even arrived at this community, but it will all be exposed soon enough. Do as you see fit, and snare as you must. You may convince a few, but we both know you'll be exposed in short order. Why do this? Why go to this level of personal attack and slander to point to the residents as cancerous agents? Whatever you think of my ideas, whatever you think of my solutions, why all of this rhetoric and all of this personal attack on a public platform that you never apologize for, that you never delete the posts, you never apologize for it? But that's the kind of leadership that we need on the board of directors, somebody who will do that. So this is what this is all about. I'm sorry, I didn't want to have to get into detail on all of this, but residents need to know why are we at loggerheads? Why are we constantly in conflict with the board of directors? It's because of the attitude that we get from them. It's because of the hateful attitude they display towards many residents. And it's because they basically say, what do you want? What do you all want? What do we all want? We want Rochdale to remain affordable. We want what was promised to us. We want you to live up to those promises. And we want you to fight for us since you're in a position of leadership. And I don't think that that's an outrageous demand. And I don't think that that's us asking them to do anything that they're not capable of doing. And if they're not capable of doing it, then they shouldn't be in that position. I don't think that that's a personal attack to say that if you ran for leadership, that you should lead, especially when our community is on the brink of financial collapse. Sorry to go into so much detail, but I just want to make sure that people know what's going on. Adena, go ahead. I'm sure you have comments.
Okay. Well, as I said, I told you that I was upset about nobody cares if I'm upset, but I'm just letting you know that I was upset about, the attack that they're saying, that not they're saying, you have to call names or whatever, that was put out, as you said, on a platform, to find out, how did you come to live here. Do you want to know how come each and every one? So if he's doing that to John Ferretti, then he's going to do it to me. He's going to do it to you too. If he's attacking us, then he's going to attack everybody. That's because I'm going to draw everybody into this. I'm going to be like, come, look what's happening over here. You know what I'm saying? Look what's happening over here. Why would you do that? And you need to come out and you need to explain why would you, as the board of director, because you are the board of director, on the board of directors. John isn't. He's a resident here. So you have to set a standard, a higher standard than John would set, because people elect you and they look up to you. We look up to you as an elected official. So we don't expect for you to come down here to, throw blows and to threaten and to do all of that. We expect for you to do better. That's what it is. And we're fighting because people cannot afford. There are people that doesn't have the voice. They don't know how to fight. So I think, well, I do a little fighting, but John do most of the fighting. I'm the camera person. I'm there to back him up. I go out late at night
Don't sell
to,
yourself short. You're the one who's doing selfie bombs with Zoran Mamdani. So,
yeah, I do all of that, so we try to get we try to get the word out there on the street that Rochdale is in dire need of help. It's a crisis here, and we need for the state to come and help us, because we cannot do it here. We're calling, we're like shouting, help us, help us, help us. And you know the state, the elective officers, those big willies have to come. And everybody have problems, and they all say, look, we have problems too, or
yeah.
everybody's having a problem, but we care about Rochdale. That's who we care about. That's who's on our
Well,
lips to talk about.
you fight where you are, right? You fight for your community, and hopefully, if
Definitely.
all communities fight for themselves, we can build united cause to fight for each other. But
Yeah. But
it
people
makes
always want to find that. I'm so sorry. Everyone sees us and they say, well, how are we going to get rid of this mess? How are we not going to pay that 57%? How are we not going to pay that 22%? And the only way that we can say is that we have to put pressure on the elective officers to say, help us and to find us a grant, or the help the mortgage with a low interest rate. That's the only way that we see forward, is to have the state help us.
yeah,
So when you ask how did we get into this mess, I don't know how we got into this mess. Well, I do know how we got into this mess, but we also need to have a way of how we're going to get out of this mess and to keep on moving. And the way that it is to get out of this mess and to keep our head up way above water is to have the state. It's to have the state to basically help to fund us.
yeah.
Every year they have to fund us. They just like how Donald Trump funded Elon Musk. You know what I'm saying?
Or
Just
Elon
like
Musk
how he
funded
helped
Donald
him.
Trump.
Huh?
Elon funded Donald Trump.
Well, it
Yeah,
could be the other way around. It's a big battle of who did what,
yeah.
but the state need to fund us. Okay, the state is our parent, and we need help right now.
Well, the state
And
is our
that's what.
landlord. It's not. The state is our landlord,
Yeah,
and the other thing too is that, like, they owe us. We don't owe them. They want our votes. They want our tax money. They want us to keep the city and the state running. Remember, a lot of people who live at Rochdale are New York City and New York State employees. We
definitely.
provide public
And
services.
hospital
We dedicate
workers.
our and hospital workers. Don't forget the hospital workers, or Adina's going to get upset. Um, and office workers and EMS and firefighters and sanitation. We provide the essential services in this city.
Homeland Security.
And we demand respect. And we demand respect. And you're not going to get respect unless you demand respect. And a closed mouth goes unfed. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. We have to constantly keep the pressure on these politicians so they never forget who keeps them elected, who supports it with their tax dollars, and who is too important to abandon. They would say the rich are they're too big to fail. We're too important to fail. We need their help, and we demand their help, and we have to have concrete steps forward. And when you have news media interventions, when you do public relations, and you go to the news media and the politicians, and you say nothing about the Wells Fargo loan, that is the single biggest line item in our entire budget, has ballooned to over $225 million since we've been paying that loan in 2019. So it ballooned over $30 million since we've been paying. We've never missed a payment. We've made all the payments, but we owe more than when we started with. $30 million more than what we started with. And yet it never gets raised. It never gets mentioned. It never even gets mentioned. What gets mentioned is insurance costs, which are important, material costs, which are important, the increase in the water bill, which is important, the lack of state funding for the rehabilitation of all of these things, which is important. But the single largest line item on our budget and the single biggest determining factor of whether Rochdale will be affordable in the future is whether that we continue to pay that high interest debt, whether we continue to be bled for every spare dollar to pay off that mortgage. And they never mention it. Why?
But the thing about it, John, even in every household, almost every household that you can think of, the rent and the mortgage is the biggest chop of bills that you have to pay.
Yeah.
So Rochdale is no different. That is the biggest one that we have to pay. So if we could lower that cost, then everything would trickle down. Then we would have been able to pay the water bill.
Yeah. And not
and
to
the
mention,
insurance and the vendors,
and not
if
to
that
mention
wasn't
when
so
people do
high.
injustices against you and people engage in discriminatory lending because they're not offering that rate of interest to white communities. I can tell you that for a fact. It's not happening. It's not happening. And when gentrification happens, watch. The money will come down like the milk of heaven with FHA loans to help them renovate this into a luxury community. And our tax dollars will pay for it. And that can't happen. And we have to understand the very dark times that we're in right now. If Trump and the fascists who run this government find out that Rochdale is bankrupt, find out that Co-op City is bankrupt, and every other Mitchell-Lama is bankrupt, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to sharpen up their knives to chop up Rochdale into pieces of luxury unaffordable housing, and they're going to price us out of the city that we keep running, and we cannot allow that to happen. So you may ask, why do I think why do I think that it's a mistake, the way in which they do political advocacy? Well, let me show you from the Rochdale Village Bulletin from this month of how we get information about what kind of advocacy and lobbying they're doing on our behalf. Do we hear from Jean Hall, the president of the board of directors, about what they are negotiating on our behalf, what the details are? Does she provide us documentation about the water bill payment plan that she's worked out over, that the board of directors and the management company worked out over the next 10 years? How much interest we'll be paying on that water bill? No, we don't get any of that information. We just get a post in Real Deal Rochdale telling us that we don't have to worry, that they've worked out a payment plan. So yet at the same time, in the Rochdale Village Bulletin, the general manager puts out a report with all sorts of deals he and the board of directors have supposedly been negotiating. So I just want to find the page. Adena, can you tell me if you can see this?
Yes, but it's very small.
Okay. All right. So I'm gonna try to read it. But everybody can find it online. If you look up Rochdale Village Bulletin, the May 2025 issue, you'll see what we're talking about. I'm going to try to make it a little bigger though. Okay, so he says that $9.1 million of additional funds was secured and $10.6 million more is in the works. Management and the board have explored every resource to assist in maintaining the infrastructure of Rochdale. In the past few years, they have gotten $5.6 million provided for facade work by New York City Council Speaker Adrian Adams. $2 million was pledged to replace 3 roofs and by New York State Senator James Sanders, and $1.5 million was allocated for community rooms by New York State Assemblyperson Vivian Cook. It took a lot of work to secure these funds, and we're doing everything possible to get more. We submitted applications for an additional $10.6 million. $6 million to repair our electrical switch gears from the New York City Borough President. I guess he means the Queens Borough President, Donovan Richards. And then he says $3 million to replace air conditioning equipment from the U.S. Congress. I would assume that means from Gregory Meeks. And $1.6 million to replace roofs from the New York City Council. I'm assuming that means from Adrian Adams. So my question is, why are we receiving this information in a short general manager's report from someone who has no credibility with our residents and lies to us constantly? Why wasn't that the job of the board of directors to tell us where this money is coming from and what it will secure for our community, and to provide some kind of documents that prove that when we're getting the money? And what are they loans? Is it direct aid? What's the nature of this aid, the $10.6 million in aid? You'll also notice that not a dime of the $10.6 million more that's in the works that Jay Williams, the manager of Summit Management Company, is telling us about comes from New York State at all. The $3 million comes from the U.S. Congress, $6 million comes from the Queensboro president, and $1.6 million comes from the New York City Council. I would assume that's Adrian Adams. So how come there's no state money? After all of this lobbying, there's no state money at all. There's no word about the application that they were supposed to put in, the management company, for the $80 million from last year's budget. They were supposed to be responsible. The board of directors decided that the management company that they don't trust, that's unaccountable, that they believe engages in all sorts of mismanagement, that they should be in charge of applying for this money from the New York State budget from last year, that nobody seemed to know anything about, neither the board of directors or the management company. We get no updates about that. No updates about this money, what the timeline is to apply for this money. No updates about the money that's approved in the current state budget, $110 million in the state assembly, another $110 million in the state senate, and $750 million in the state assembly. We get no updates about how we're going to apply for that aid, what the timeline is for any of that. So you wonder why residents are angry or anxious or concerned about the fact that this whole lobbying campaign doesn't seem to be providing real tangible results. And the results that are provided were negotiated between the management company and the board of directors, and we knew nothing about it at all until the general manager decided to put it in his report. And that's a problem. It's a problem in the way we're functioning. And if you want trust, you have to act in a trustworthy way. You have to be truly transparent. You have to truly be accountable. And nobody should have any kind of feelings whatsoever about being asked to be accountable. Provide receipts for what you do. If you're doing so much, it shouldn't be a problem at all to provide receipts for what you do. And nobody gives you money unless they provide receipts. It's the same frustration that our residents have with Jay Williams and the management company, that they can't find the deed for land they sold. If residents feel some type of way about the fact you can't find the bill of sale for property that you sold in our name, then residents are going to feel the same type of way about aid that we're supposedly applying for that we don't see any receipts or any results from. And aid that seems to come from nowhere, that's only told to us by somebody who lies to us every second they breathe. Yet you wonder why residents would be concerned about, is this true? Is he telling the truth or not?
Well, John, I think that, as you said, people want to see receipts. So if you're saying that, people want to know, is the loan going to be refinanced at a lower rate? Because if that happens, then, our carrying charges won't be that low. If we get help from the state, some grants or whatever, then the carrying charges won't be so high. So basically, you want to find out what is going on. So what can happen so that the carrying charges will not be so high? Like what are the receipts that's going on up until today's date that's going to be able to bring the carrying charges down? To
Yeah.
whatever, to the state. What we want for the carrying charges to go according to the inflation of what's happening in the state. So if it's 5% that's the rate of inflation, that's what we want our carrying charges to be.
And the rate
Because
of inflation is
my
4.3%, by the
yeah,
way.
even say 6% or 7%, whatever the situation is, because I don't see anyone getting a 40% raise in their job. So how do you afford to pay for this? That's what you have to say. And it's not the resident fault. I think and I feel that there is no one here is stupid. We understand that the rate of inflation went up, and we understand that bills went up. We understand insurance went up. The problem is I just don't feel that it went up that high. I just feel that it was the bills that we have in the past that have not been paid. That's what's causing this problem. And how do you get rid of those bills? Because if you got rid of those bills, what is really the cost of the carrying charge increase if you got rid of all those back bills?
Right.
Because they said that HCR implemented a new rule where you have to be able to tell us how you're going to pay your bills. And that is the problem right there.
Yeah.
How do it's not because, oh my God, the water bill, or because of this, is because of that. It is the water bill, but it's because it's the back water bill. It's not the inflation that's currently happening within the world. Yes, you try to blame it and say it's the inflation, things are going up, and that's what it is. But in reality, the true basis of why the carrying charges are so high, 22%, 34%, 50 something percent, is because of the back bills, because of the new rule that HCR implemented. And
Right.
they're saying, look, you need to pay these back bills. And one of those back bills is the mortgage also that
Right.
nobody wants to talk about. It's, they want it, you have to understand and to have people keep asking, why is it so high? It's high because of the back bill. It's high because of the
The interest.
um the new rules that HCR implemented
Right.
to say, well, how are you going to pay these back bills? It's like me having a credit card that I used 10 years ago, and now I have to pay that credit card,
Yeah.
but I don't have the way of paying it.
But the other thing is too that New York State knows why we took these loans. They're playing like we're stupid too. New York State knows goddamn well why Rochdale and Co-op City and every other Mitchell-Lama are in huge amounts of debt, because they are a deadbeat no-show landlord, because they have walked away over many decades to their responsibility as the landlord, as the people who run the state program that's supposed to provide affordable housing, to make it truly affordable. If you go online and look at HCR's charter, yes, there is a section that says that every 2 years they have to make sure that you have a balanced budget. That is in the charter. You know what else is in the charter? They are supposed to balance that interest and the interest of maintaining affordability at these Mitchell-Lama programs. They have to balance between those two missions. They have two missions, not one. They're super on the ball about enforcing the balanced budget every 2 years, but not so much about affordability. And they are turning their backs on us. And they are acting like they're stupid, and they're not. They know exactly what they're doing. And they are in league with these management companies. They are in league with Wells Fargo. They are in league with the real estate predators and the vultures who are circling around Rochdale and every other piece of affordable housing in New York City to try to make it go away. Lisa Golden asked if we fall under a plan called Community Land Trust. I'm not sure. I'd have to do some research on that. There are some things that I don't know, and unlike some people, I don't claim to know things I don't know. I'd have to do some research on it, and I have to follow up. I'll follow up on it, and either myself or Adena will follow up on it. But the other thing is that the active role that residents have played in this whole struggle since February, from the beginning of February through this point right now. The active role they've played in directly reaching out, calling, emailing, sending letters to elected officials shows the potential for actually having our voices heard. And that's part of the reason why Adena and myself drafted a letter to elected officials, an open letter calling on them to call on the governor, to directly meet with our residents, to come to Rochdale Village, to actually see the conditions we are living under, to actually hear the voices of our residents, like the senior who's quoted in the CBS News report about her only way forward, her only way to be able to make that carrying charge is for her to starve. They need to hear those voices. Where are your elected leaders? Anyone, concerned cooperators, Jewel of Jamaica, no matter who they are or what ticket what slate they ran on, where are they calling for or backing that demand? Where is the demand on these elected officials to do anything other than ignore us? We went up to Albany, and our assemblywoman, Vivian Cook, told one group of residents, about 30 of them, that she could FaceTime them. She knew they were coming. She knew because this was advertised for over a week, and because supposedly she had somewhat subsidized the trip up there because the buses were paid by elected officials. She knew we were coming. She couldn't take 20 minutes out of her day to speak with residents who traveled 6+ hours in both directions, round trip, to meet with her. And you have residents who are supporters of Jean Hall and the board of directors saying, this is perfectly okay, that we got the response we were looking for. That's not the response we were looking for. That's complete and utter disrespect. That's playing in our faces and telling us, no, she doesn't have any time to meet with residents that she knew would be traveling there for over a week, that she helped facilitate the buses for, but she can't meet with us. That's not acceptable. And when people show you disrespect, a smile on their face is ignorance. It only encourages them to further disrespect you. When you smile at them, when they're laughing at us, when they're mocking us, when they refuse to hear our voices, when they disrespect our community. And speaking of people who need to be held accountable, here is, I don't know if you guys seen, but in Realdale, Rochdale, there's a post in here about our city council person, Adrian Adams, going to visit another Mitchell Lama to see how they're living. She goes to another Mitchell Lama to see how they're living. But she doesn't come, when she comes to Rochdale, it's to launch her campaign. It's to take advantage of overtime of our maintenance crews, to mop the floors, steam press everything, paint the parking spots,
fix the repair doors,
repair accessibility doors that have been broken for 6 months.
And that's not the way that somebody's truly living. You have to come when nothing is fixed. You have to come when the door is broken, when the place is all messy. You have to come like when the residents are living here. You can't be washing the parking lot.
So I understand that she's campaigning on a citywide basis, but I don't see her making a trip to see how we're living. And I don't see her actually supporting putting pressure on the governor in any real concrete way. She would not sign on to the open letter. In fact, her office would not even respond. That's not acceptable.
Well, she didn't even say anything at the debate either.
Yeah, she didn't say anything at the debate either.
Michael Blake was the only one that said anything.
But the other thing is that, like, if she came to the meeting with elected officials and talks about how she's thinking maybe she might have to directly reach out to Governor Hochul now. In May, it was May 20th, we had that meeting. That's the first time she thought she had to get in contact with the governor to actually press our demands, to make sure that residents are heard, to demand that the governor come to Rochdale and speak to the residents. Why are our elected leaders not at the forefront of pressing our demands with unaccountable state leaders who abandoned us? Why is it too much to ask that they meet with our residents? I don't understand. Why is that a radical demand? Why is that a personal attack to say that Kathy Hochul should take time out of her schedule, since she has plenty of time to do photo ops all over the city and all over the state, to block out a period of time that she comes and speaks to our residents? Why is that a personal attack? Only somebody who's corrupt, only somebody who's an egomaniac would think that asking them for some of their time to speak to the people who pay their salary, to the people whose votes they depend on to get elected, to speak to people who keep the city and state running, that it's too much of an imposition for her to block out some time to speak to the second largest Mitchell-Lama complex in the entire state, the second largest affordable housing community in the entire country. But it's too much of an imposition for us to ask her for some of her time. That's not acceptable. And like I said, we're not going to get anywhere without any demands. Those who speak the loudest, the squeakiest wheel gets the grease, and an open mouth don't get fed. And if you won't speak for us, don't get upset about us advocating on our own name, because we are fighting for our lives. We're fighting for the life of our community, and we will be heard. And we will fight for any way to make those voices heard. And if you got a problem with that, and you want to engage in personal attacks against people who feel that way, then you're not living up to your responsibilities as the supposed leaders of our community. Adena, you want to say anything? Because we got to wrap up.
It's time to go. Goodbye, everyone.
Okay. Oh, hold on. We got a comment here. Lisa Golden says she's not going to because they've decided what and how they're going to make changes in Rochdale Village. And, you know, that's what we're worried about. Yeah. We're worried about them using HCR's number of 57%, which, let's be honest, that's never going to happen. But they want to use the shock and awe of that 57% number to make 22% sound not so bad. And that's not affordable either. And we all know that's not affordable. And we're not accepting that okie doke. Sorry. We know what you're doing. And we know how you're playing in our faces. And we demand accountability, and we demand that our residents' voices be heard. And if you got a problem with that, that says more about you than it does about our community and our residents. Okay, we'd like to thank everybody for participating in the chat. Please keep the comments going. And we look forward to talking with you and being in the community with you in any opportunity we have, no matter who organizes it, to be in community and to stand and amplify the voices of our community and to force those in power to hear us. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
we'll
you.
talk to everyone really soon. And
thank you.
Everybody have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll be in community with you soon. Thank you.
Chewy's sleeping.
Yeah, Chewy's sleeping. He couldn't make a cameo today. Sorry about that. You all missed out. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.